So I just saw a Bitcoin signal so rare, it basically never happens when you're near an all-time high. And if I'm right about what it means, well, stick around because this could be huge. So picture this, right? It's late at night, I'm bleary-eyed, I'm staring at the Bitcoin chart. Now Bitcoin's price is just chilling a little tad under the record high that it hit a couple weeks ago. And I'm thinking, all right, we're basically at the top, not much else to see. But then my inner crypto nerd kicks in and I start digging through some on-chain data from an analytics report, and bam, I spot a line that makes me do a double take. It says that the risk from the broader economy, the so-called macro risk, is really low right now, even though Bitcoin is near its all-time high. Wait, what did I just say? Well, the low risk at record high prices. That's like climbing Mount Everest and finding out that you don't even need an oxygen mask at the summit. Now, it just does not happen, at least not in my experience. So my heart literally kind of skipped a beat reading that, because if that isn't a textbook definition of a very rare bullish signal, I don't know what is. Now the analysts I should say, they straight up called it rare and historically bullish. And I got a flashback to the last time that I felt this kind of excitement in the data. And the spoiler, that was back in late 2020, right before Bitcoin went on an absolute tear. So naturally, I'm now kind of perched on the edge of my seat. But I'm also scratching my head here, right? If everything is so bullish under the hood, then why isn't Bitcoin just exploding past that all-time high, right this second? Well, instead, I see Ethereum, I see Solana, and a bunch of other altcoins kind of partying like it's 2017, while Bitcoin is just, well, vibing quietly. It's a weird sight, right? So what gives? Well, did Bitcoin really run out of steam, or is this the calm before a giant storm? And I had to figure this out, right? For my own sanity and honestly, so that I can sleep at night without checking prices every 5 minutes. And guess what? The deeper that I dug, the more that it started to make sense. It's a story of patience, a dose of déjà vu from past crypto cycles, and yes, a little bit of my own kind of trading drama kind of sprinkled in. Now, before I go any further, I need to make one thing crystal clear. It's really important, and this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies, they are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, now that we got that reality check out of the way, let's get back to the good stuff. So, Bitcoin near an all-time high plus super low macro risk. It equals extremely bullish setup, right? Well, historically, yeah. Usually when Bitcoin is at record levels, there's something in the macro economy that's freaking us out. Maybe it's the Fed is hiking interest rates, or inflation is spiking, or some big bad regulatory kind of news looms. But right now, according to this analysis, the broader economic conditions aren't really threatening the crypto party. So it's kind of like we're throwing a rooftop bash, and even the kind of notoriously grumpy neighbors, that's the macro economy, haven't called the cops on us yet. So in plain English, one big dream crusher for Bitcoin. External economic risk is snoozing on the job, at least for the moment. That's pretty rare. And when I say rare, I mean I can count on one hand the number of times that I've seen Bitcoin at peak prices with so little macro storm clouds overhead. No wonder the report called it historically bullish. Now, I'm kind of sitting here thinking, is this for real? And where is the catch? Well, the catch might be this. Nobody is making the next move. Not yet, right? The data also noted that despite all of the bullish potential, Bitcoin has only seen a slight uptick in price over the last few days. Basically, it's kind of flat, a little bit up, a little bit down, nothing crazy. And the reason is the bulls are not bidding aggressively. Now, those were the exact words, by the way, right? So in other words, the big players, the buyers, they're just holding back. Now, it's kind of like everyone is waiting for something. They're waiting for volatility, apparently. Now, think about that as kind of a bit of a standoff, right? The bulls are poised with their wallets, but they're not hitting that buy button hard enough because, well, they're expecting some fireworks first, maybe a dip, which we are seeing at the point of recording, by the way, at 114,000. Maybe the breakout confirmations where they jump in. Who knows, right? It's kind of as if Bitcoin is the ocean and we're all surfers kind of sitting on our boards, feeling the swell build up, right? The waves aren't there yet, but you can sense them coming. And no one wants to paddle too early and miss the big one. I'll be honest, right? This behavior, it confused me at first. I woke up, I saw Bitcoin still around $117,000, where it's kind of been hovering, and I actually kind of muttered to myself, what are we waiting for? Christmas? It's kind of like the market's on pause, even though all systems say go. But then I realized of course, volatility, right? Traders, they live for it. A lot of the big players, they don't want to buy high if they can buy a sudden dip or ride a breakout after a squeeze, right? And they're kind of being patient here, maybe even being a little bit sneaky. And as I'm kind of having this epiphany, I glance over at my other screen and notice something wild. The altcoins, Ethereum, Solana, the whole cast of high impulse coins are zooming up in the meantime. So this is where things get spicy. So Bitcoin's taking a bit of a power nap right now, right? But what do traders do? They say, all right, it's time to play elsewhere. It's kind of rotation time. Money is flowing into altcoin playground. And oh boy, Ethereum has been on a tear, right? I saw Ether broke into the mid $3,000 levels, and it's drawing in capital like a magnet, possibly because of some new ETF hype or some people kind of just realizing, hey, ETH might be undervalued relative to BTC right now. But it's not just ETH, Solana too. I blinked and Sol's price is higher than the last time that I checked, right? Even some meme coins, God forbid, and NFTs were left for dead, or left for dead have been springing back to life this week, right? It really kind of feels like a classic altcoin season, although not exactly. Kind of where maybe all the crazy side bets actually start paying off while Bitcoin just catches its breath. Now, here's a little story. My phone buzzes yesterday, and a friend of mine, he's mostly an altcoin cowboy, love the term by the way, loves the small caps essentially. Now, he's grinning through the text, bragging about how his Solana bag is up 20% in a week, and asking me if he should finally buy some Bitcoin now since it's kind of doing nothing. And I had to laugh, right? This scenario is so familiar, it kind of hurts a bit, right? I remember back in early 2018, right after the 2017 Bitcoin peak, I had friends rubbing their kind of Ripple gains in my face while my Bitcoin, was sliding down, saying, dude, why stick with Bitcoin? You've got X, Y, and Z coins and is kind of the real deal, right? And those were the fun times until they weren't, when the bubble popped. And again, in 2021, I saw something similar, right? Bitcoin would pump to a new high, then stall, and all the hot money would rush into altcoins. There was that kind of one spring in 2021 when Dogecoin, with Elon's help, of all things, went from a meme to a top 5 cryptocurrency because everyone was chasing the gains that, Elon Musk was talking about, the next big win, right? Meanwhile, of course, Bitcoin, it looked like it was lagging behind. It's kind of like clockwork in crypto, right? The moment that you think Bitcoin is boring, it has a habit of shocking you. So here I am, watching all of this play out again in 2025. And I'll admit, a tiny voice in my head whispered, hey, what if these alt rallies are a sign that the cycle's topping out? Maybe the big guys moved to alts because Bitcoin is done. Well, it's kind of the paranoia that every long-term holder gets, right? You hodl BTC, but all the kind of flashy stuff is happening elsewhere, and you wonder if you've missed the memo. But then I checked in with some very smart folks within our community. Shout out to everyone in our free educational Discord. The link, by the way, is in the description if you haven't joined us yet. And kind of we're debating, you know, this kind of very scenario, right? Some people were like, yep, this is a classic end of cycle behavior. Better be cautious. But others, they pointed out evidence that this time might be different, or at least not the end, just a new chapter. And it was a very lively discussion with lots of charts and memes flying around, and you know who you are, meme lords. And that kind of helped me kind of chill out a little bit and look at the data more objectively. Now, one piece of data that we talked about was something that was called the short-term HODL cost basis. Now, I know that sounds like a boring and analyst kind of jargon, right? But stick with me here because it's actually pretty cool and not too hard to grasp. Basically, imagine all Bitcoin holders who bought in the last few months, the short-term holders, right? That's at least there's an average price that they would have paid for their Bitcoins, right? Now we call that their cost basis, right? If Bitcoin's price falls below that number, those people are underwater, meaning that they're holding at a loss. Now that's kind of when they tend to panic and possibly sell off. So if Bitcoin's well above that average cost, those short-term holders are all in profit, maybe even euphoric, which can also be risky because euphoria equals complacency equals sometimes a blow off top. Now, according to the analytics from Swissblock, that's the folks who put out this report that I'm obsessing over, well, the risk zone for short-term holders starts at around $138,000 for Bitcoin. They literally said that at roughly $138,000, short-term holders risk becomes high, meaning that those recent buyers start feeling, you know, the kind of FOMO fever at that level. Now, when I read that, I immediately did some quick math. $138,000 is about 17% higher than where Bitcoin was trading when I last checked at the point of recording, somewhere around 117, 115K. So in theory, Bitcoin could pump another 17% from here before we even approach the danger zone with short-term traders, at least where short-term traders have historically might have started freaking out or getting, you know, I guess, irrationally, you know, exuberant. So in other words, there's potentially still room to run before we even hit that kind of overhead condition or overheated condition that actually makes everyone either panic sell or start screaming to the moon at the top of, well, their lungs. And guess what, right? Right now, we're nowhere near that kind of short-term holder pain point, right? These traders are active, sure. Some are potentially taking profits, as you would expect with high price, right? Or when the price is high. But they're not in a kind of frenzy. They're not in distress, right? That kind of market is like the Goldilocks zone, right? It's not too hot, it's not too cold. It's just right for further growth. So when I realized that, it might actually, it kind of felt like a weight off of my shoulders, right? Like, okay, we're not in the euphoria stage just yet. We're not at the panic mode either. We're just in expansion mode. So at this point, I'm practically buzzing with excitement. It's like I have a sneak peek into the playbook of what might actually come next. Bitcoin's holding strong. Altcoins are moving, and data suggests that the party is not over. It's just shifting gears. So I did something that might sound counterintuitive. I didn't ape into a bunch of new altcoin positions out of pure FOMO. Instead, I took a deep breath, I double-checked my game plan, I opened up my Kraken Pro app and reviewed my portfolio allocations. Quick transparency moment though, I use Kraken Pro for a lot of my trading, and I do have an affiliate link that is down in the description. So if you want to check it out, using it helps support the channel here, so thanks in advance if you do. Now, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't overextended on anything and that I was ready for whatever comes next. Because if Bitcoin does decide to rip another 10, 15, 20% upwards, I want to be ready, not scrambling to adjust because I was too busy chasing a shiny altcoin detour. And don't get me wrong, right? I'm enjoying the heck out of this altcoin rally, right? I took some profits on a couple of altcoins that went absolutely bonkers last week. No one ever went broke taking profits, and as the saying kind of goes, right? But the core of my strategy, and again, not financial advice, just my personal approach, is to keep my Bitcoin position intact through these rotations. Bitcoin is still the captain of the ship, sure. Sometimes the captain lets the crew, that's the altcoins by the way, have their fun and steal the show for a while. But at the end of the day, if the ship's going to reach a new land, let's say six-figure island beyond 120k, it's Bitcoin that'll steer us there. Right now, Bitcoin is acting like a structural kind of anchor of this market, steady, strong, not necessarily the one doing the backflips on the trampoline, but keeping the whole thing grounded. Meanwhile, Ethereum, Solana, and others are explosive dancers, drawing the crowd's attention on the sidelines. And you know what? That's healthy. That's an ecosystem evolving. That's not a cycle dying. In fact, one line from the Swiss block report really stuck with me, right? BTC holds, altcoins move. The cycle isn't ending, it's evolving, right? Now I actually said, whoa, out loud when I read that, as it kind of just resonated with me. So let's think about it, right? A lot of people have this misconception, right, that when altcoins start pumping and Bitcoin slows down, it's game over for the Bitcoin rally. But here we have evidence that that's not true, right? It can simply be an evolution of the cycle. And I've been on record many times saying that this cycle is different. We have fundamentally different underlying variables that changed during 2022 and 2023. We can't be expecting the same thing to repeat itself with underlying variable shifts. Now, a phase where Bitcoin consolidates its huge gains, remember, we've kind of with this a lot this year, right? And lets the rest of the market kind of catch up or play around, right? Before possibly making its next big move, right? Bitcoin is like that solid rock at the party, right? Maybe not doing the crazy dances, but making sure the floor doesn't collapse. And when the timing's right, it can still burst out a move that steals the show. So where does that leave us? Personally, it leaves me feeling both excited and zen at the same time, which is a bit of a weird combo, right? I know. Excited because all of these indicators, low macro risk, room to grow before short-term holders flip out, and a strong but steady Bitcoin, right, suggest that this bull run might actually still have gas in the tank. And I'm zen because I don't feel the need to chase every pump and dump out there. I can just watch Shiba Inu or whatever it is do a 2x in a day without losing my mind. Well, mostly. And it's all really because I have my eyes on the bigger picture, right? I've seen a cycle or two at this point, and one thing that I keep learning is patience. Patience and not getting swept up entirely in the kind of euphoria. Now, we're not at euphoria yet anyway, not by any metrics, right? And honestly, not by the vibe either. Now, I mean, are you, at least are your non-crypto friends calling you to ask if they should mortgage their house to buy Bitcoin? Mine are not. And if they did, I would probably tackle them and say, hell no, don't do it, right? Now, the point is that the crazy mainstream frenzy that usually marks a top isn't quite here. Outside of our crypto bubble, the world isn't even talking about Bitcoin 24/7, and that's probably a good sign. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we have a guaranteed ticket to higher prices either. Nothing is guaranteed. We've covered that in the disclaimer, remember? Well, what we could wake up to tomorrow to some kind of black swan event, that's also possible, or some regulatory smackdown, or heck, maybe even aliens finally land and they hate Bitcoin. Hey, anything is possible, right? You always have to stay humble and ready for the unexpected in this game. But based on what I'm seeing right now, the outlook looks, well, pretty damn optimistic in my opinion. Cautiously optimistic, some may say, right? Now, Bitcoin's flashing a green light that is rarely ever, at least that it rarely ever flashes. And the altcoin action is lively, but it's not derailing the bigger picture here. It's actually just a part of it, right? The whole market feels like it's on one of those build-up moments, like it's the first half of a roller coaster, climb, click, 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 building potential energy. And you know what comes after that, right? That's the fun part, the big drop or the speedy ride. So I, for one, I'm strapping in for whatever happens next. I've positioned myself, I've got a plan, and I've got a community to chat with again. By the way, if you want to be a part of those chats, check out the Discord. It's free and full of friendly folk who love to help and learn. Check out the link in the description. However, I should say this plays out. It's kind of moments like this that remind me why I fell in love with crypto spaces, right? It's unpredictable, it's exciting, and if you pay attention, you might just catch a glimpse of history before it's made. So, if you've made it this far, first of all, thank you, because most people only watch 31% of our videos here at Cheeky Crypto, so they miss a lot of the context of what we talk about. But what a journey we've been on, right? We went from late night charting nerds to altcoin FOMO to a deep kind of metrics and even some personal nostalgia. Right? And the story is not over, not for Bitcoin and not for us as crypto adventurers. Right? I'm going to be watching closely in the next few days and weeks to see if Bitcoin finally wakes up and makes that next leg higher. Will it be triggered by some sudden volatility like big players, anticipate? Probably, or possibly, in fact. Right? Or would it, quietly just grind up and catch everyone's off guard? Right? That is the beauty of all of this. Nobody knows for sure, and that is why we stay tuned in. And no matter what, I'm going to be I'm going to keep sharing all of this with you guys as I learn and experience along the way. The good, the bad, and the absurd, because that's always, or at least there's always something absurd in the crypto land, right? And I hope that you'll do the same, whether it's in the comments or in the Discord, whatever. And all right, so that's it for this particular update. If you've enjoyed coming along on this little crypto adventure with me, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, click the like button, and it's one click for you, but it means the world to the channel here. Next time, we're going to be taking a look at a few other things on the channel. So if you haven't already checked out that video, you can go check that one out. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one.